I came home early to surprise my daughter, but it was my ex-wife's greeting that I wasn't ready for, and it broke something open in me I'd spent 3 years pretending was sealed shut. I'm Adam Hale, 36, a structural engineer who just spent 9 months building a bridge in Alaska so I wouldn't have to keep handing my little girl across a doorway every other Sunday to a woman I divorced but never stopped loving. The plan was simple: come home early, surprise my daughter, watch her come barreling down the hallway in her socks. But when I unlocked the door of the house that used to be mine, my daughter wasn't the one waiting. My ex-wife was, asleep on the couch in my old flannel shirt, the one I'd accused her of throwing away 2 years ago. And on the coffee table, holding her place in a journal full of letters she never sent me, were our divorce papers. She opened her eyes. She didn't yell. She didn't yell. She didn't yell. Ask what I was doing there. She pressed her hand to her mouth and whispered, "You came back." And then my ex-wife started to cry, the way you only cry for someone you were sure you'd lost for good. But here's what I didn't know yet. I didn't know she was 3 weeks from saying yes to another man. I didn't know what was really written in that journal. And I didn't know that the reason our marriage ended wasn't the reason I'd told myself for 3 years. So why was my ex-wife sleeping in my shirt the night before I came home? What was she trying to say in letters she never mailed? And what happens when you come home early to surprise your daughter and find the person you broke your own heart to leave, greeting you like she'd been waiting all along? Let me take you back to that doorway, because I almost didn't open it. I'd stood on that porch for a full minute, key in my hand, heart slamming against my ribs like it was trying to get out. The sun wasn't even up yet. The street was gray and quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your own breathing sound loud. There was frost on the grass. A newspaper sat on the neighbor's step. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked twice and gave up. I had a stuffed narwhal under one arm, the size of a small child, because 9 months ago, Lily had told me, very seriously, the way she said everything, that the narwhal was her favorite animal because it was a unicorn that decided to live in the ocean instead. I'd carried that ridiculous thing through 3 airports. A man at security had looked at me and just nodded, like he understood. I slid the key in. It still fit. That shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. Some part of me expected the locks to have changed, the way everything else had. The door swung open into the dark, and the smell hit me first. That's the thing nobody warns you about. Houses have a smell, and your old house has your smell. Or the ghost of it. Coffee and cinnamon and that lavender stuff Nora put on the windowsills. 9 months in a freezing metal trailer in Alaska, breathing diesel and cold, and one breath of that hallway nearly put me on my knees. I stepped inside. I was going to be quiet. I was going to sneak to Lily's room and wake her up gently and watch her face do the thing kids' faces do when the world surprises them in a good way. Then I saw the couch, and I forgot how to move. She was curled up under a thin blanket, one bare foot sticking out, her dark hair spilled across the cushion, and she was wearing my shirt, the gray flannel, the one I'd torn the house apart looking for 2 years ago, the one I'd actually argued with her about. I'd said she threw it out. She'd said she'd never touch my ugly lumberjack shirt, and I'd believed her, and I'd let it go. She hadn't thrown it out. She'd been sleeping in it. I should have backed out of the room right then, given her some dignity. But my eyes dropped to the coffee table, and that's where everything I thought I knew came apart. There was a journal lying face down to keep its place, soft, worn corners, a pen clipped to the cover, and the thing she was using as a bookmark, the thing tucked between those pages, was a folded stack of legal paper I would have recognized anywhere. Our divorce papers. She'd been using the end of our marriage to mark her place in a notebook full of God knows what. My chest did something complicated. I'm not a man who cries easily. I'm a man who builds things. Bridges, beams, structures that hold weight so other people can cross safely without ever thinking about what's underneath them. I spent my whole marriage being the thing underneath, the quiet support, the guy who held it together. And standing in that dark living room, I felt the whole structure of my own story start to tremble. Because if she didn't love me anymore, if she was over it, the way I'd told myself she was, the way I'd told myself I was, then why was she sleeping in my shirt? Why was our divorce sitting in her hands like a wound she kept reopening? I took one step closer, just one, and the floorboard groaned. That one cursed board, right where the hallway met the living room. The one I always meant to fix and never did. The one Nora used to tease me about. The one that announced me every single time I tried to creep in late from work. It groaned under my foot like it had been waiting 9 months to give me away. Nora's eyes opened. For 1 second, one long, impossible second, she just looked at me. No fear, no shock, no question. She looked at me the way you look at someone in a dream you don't want to wake up from. Soft, open, like I belonged there. And then she woke up the rest of the way, and I watched reality crash into her face. Her eyes went wide, her lips parted, her hand came up slowly, pressing against her mouth, like she could hold something in. I braced for it. I braced for "What are you doing here?" I braced for anger, for the cold, polite voice she used at the door every other Sunday, the one that never once let me back inside. Instead, she whispered, "You came back." 3 words, barely louder than a breath. And then she started to cry. Not the careful kind. Not the dab your eyes, hold it together kind we'd both gotten so good at during the divorce. This was the real thing. Her shoulders shook. She pulled the blanket up against her face, my shirt against her face, and cried like something that had been locked up for 3 years had finally, all at once, broken loose. The narwhal slipped out of my arms and flopped onto the rug. I didn't even notice it fall. "Hey," I said, and my own voice came out wrecked. Hey, it's just me. It's okay. I'm here." "You weren't," she gasped, wiped her face with my sleeve, laughed and cried at the same time. "You weren't supposed to be here until Friday. I caught an early flight. I wanted to surprise. Lily made you a banner." She let out that broken laugh again. "It's not finished. It only has one low. In welcome, it says, 'We come home.' And I'm not going to lie to you. Standing there, in the dark, in the house that used to be mine, listening to the woman I'd divorced cry into my old shirt and tell me about a half-finished banner my daughter made, every single thing I'd told myself in Alaska fell apart. I'd told myself I'd let her go. I'd told myself the distance had healed me. I'd told myself we were 2 good people who simply couldn't work, and that leaving was the brave thing, the kind thing, the adult thing. I'd told myself a lot of things, but none of them explained why my heart was pounding. None of them explained the shirt, and none of them, explained the look on her face when she opened her eyes and saw me, before she remembered she was supposed to be over me too. She wiped her eyes and tried to smile and said, "I must look insane right now." "You look," I stopped. "Like home," I almost said. I swallowed it. But her eyes had already dropped. To the coffee table, to the journal, to the divorce papers sticking out of it. And her whole body went still. "Adam," she said, and her voice had changed completely. "There's something I have to tell you before Lily wakes up." "Before Lily wakes up," Nora said again, and she sat up slowly, pulling the blanket around her like armor. "Sit down, Adam. Please, if you're standing when I say it, you'll do the thing where you nod and leave the room." That landed harder than she knew, because that was exactly what I used to do. The nodding, the leaving, the walking out of every hard conversation we ever had. So I sat, on the edge of the armchair that used to be mine, that still had the worn spot where I always sat, and I waited. She wrapped her hands around a mug of cold coffee on the table, not to drink it, just to hold something. Outside, the sky was turning from gray to a thin, pale gold. A garbage truck groaned down the street. Normal life, waking up, while my whole world held its breath. "There's a man," she said. 2 words, and the floor dropped out of my stomach. "His name is Daniel," she went on, fast now, like she had to get it out before she lost her nerve. "He coaches Lily's soccer. He's good, Adam. He's kind. He fixed the gutter, the one we fought about for 2 years. He just fixed it, didn't make it a thing." She laughed, but it cracked in the middle. "And 3 weeks ago he asked me if I thought I'd ever be ready to move to Denver with him." Her eyes came up to mine. "He's going to propose. I know he is." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. There was a narwhal lying face down on the rug between us, and I stared at it like it might tell me what to do. And I was going to say yes, she whispered. Was. Past tense. I heard it. I think she heard me hear it. Then why are you crying? I asked. My voice came out quiet and rough. Why are you wearing my shirt, Nora? Why is our divorce sitting in that notebook like a bookmark? She looked down at the journal. Her thumb ran along its soft, beaten-up corner. And something in her face just surrendered. Because I never sent them, she said. Sent what? The letters. She picked up the journal and held it against her chest, the way you hold something you're not ready to give away. 3 years, Adam. 3 years of letters to you. I never mailed a single one. I told myself it was just a way to get the feelings out. My therapist called it closure. Very healthy, very recommended. A tear slid down and she let it. And last night, Daniel asked me if I was ready. And I came out here to write you one final letter. The goodbye one. The one where I let you go for real. She laughed, and it was the saddest sound I'd ever heard. I couldn't finish a single sentence. I sat here with the pen in my hand, and I couldn't do it. So I put on your stupid shirt because it still, her voice broke clean in half, because after 3 years, it still smells like you. And I fell asleep, like a woman who is completely over her ex-husband and ready to move to Denver. The room was so quiet I could hear the clock in the kitchen. And here's the thing I need you to understand about that moment. Everything in me wanted to cross that room. Everything in me wanted to take the journal, and her face, and tell her, don't go, choose me. I'm here. 9 months of missing her were screaming it, but I didn't. Because I'd done the loud, certain, take charge thing our whole marriage, and it cost us everything. So instead I asked her the bravest, hardest thing I could think of. Read me one. She blinked. What? A letter. One of the ones you never sent. My hands were shaking and I let them shake. Nora, for 3 years I handed Lily to you at that door, and I drove away every single time with my hands shaking on the wheel, and I never told you. We were so busy being graceful, so polite. I am done being polite. I want to hear one. I think I owe you that. I think I owe us that. She stared at me. Your hands shook? Every time, every single Sunday. Something moved across her face. Shock, and then something softer underneath it. She looked down at the journal for a long moment. Then, slowly, she did the thing that changed everything. She slid the divorce papers out from between the pages, and she set them down on the table. Face down, off to the side. Like, for the first time in 3 years, they weren't holding her place anymore. She opened the journal near the front, to the worst year, and in a shaking voice, with the gold light spreading across the floor between us, she read me a letter she wrote, when our marriage was dying, and I was too far inside my own grief to see it. I won't tell you every word. Some things should stay between two people, but it was about the green room. The nursery. The one we painted before we knew. The one we never got to use. The one she kept the door closed on for 2 whole years. She wrote that one afternoon she finally opened that door, and she'd expected to feel sad, but instead she felt furious. Not at God, not at the baby we lost, at me, for disappearing into work, for taking the long way home, so I wouldn't have to walk in and see her face, for leaving her alone in a house with 2 ghosts, our son and the husband who was technically still there, but had gone somewhere she couldn't reach. And then, at the very end, in handwriting that had gone shaky and small, she'd written, I don't blame you, Adam. I think you were drowning too. I just wish we'd drowned together instead of pretending we could each swim alone. I think I'll miss the man who would have grieved our son with me for the rest of my life. She stopped reading. The journal trembled in her hands. And every story I'd told myself for 3 years came crashing down at once. Because here's what I had believed. For 3 years, I had told myself that Nora left because I wasn't enough. That she stopped loving me. That she looked at me one day and decided I was a closed-off, cold, work-obsessed man who couldn't give her what she needed. And she was right. And that's why she let me go. That was the story. That was the reason I'd carried like a stone in my chest all the way to Alaska and back. And it was wrong. She never stopped loving me. She just couldn't reach me. I had mistaken my own silence for her rejection. I thought she'd shut the door on me. The truth was, I'd locked myself in a room and called it strength, and she'd spent 3 years writing letters to the man on the other side of the wall, hoping he'd come out. I thought you stopped loving me, I said. My voice didn't work right. When you asked for the divorce, I thought I'd become a man you couldn't love anymore. Nora looked up, stunned. Adam, I asked for the divorce because I couldn't keep loving a ghost. You were right there, and you were already gone. I didn't stop loving you. I was just so tired of loving someone who wasn't in the room. I was in the room, I said. I couldn't look at you without seeing him. Every time I looked at your face, I saw Sam. And it hurt so bad I started looking away. And then I couldn't stop looking away. She made a sound, half sob, half something breaking open, and pressed her hand over her mouth. You never said that, she whispered. In all those years, you never once said that. I didn't have the words. I went to Alaska, and I built a bridge, and I cried about our son to a counselor named Greg twice a week, for 9 months, until I finally found them. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, the way you do when you've stopped holding yourself up out of pride. I'm not the man who walked out that door, Nora. I went and I got the words. I came back to use them. And right then, right at the exact moment, the whole world felt like it was about to crack open into something new. A small voice said from the hallway, Dad? We both turned. Lily stood at the edge of the hall in dinosaur pajamas, her hair a wild mess, one sock on and one sock off, staring at me like she'd conjured me out of a dream and didn't trust her own eyes. And behind her, taped crooked to the wall, was the unfinished banner. We come home. Lily's chin started to wobble, and then she said the thing that nearly finished us both. I told Mr. Daniel you'd come back, she whispered. He said maybe, but I knew. I knew. And she ran. Lily hit me at full speed. She crossed that living room like a rocket, socks slipping on the hardwood, and crashed into my chest so hard the air left my lungs. Her arms locked around my neck. Her face buried itself under my jaw, and she held on like she was making sure I couldn't disappear again. I wrapped both arms around her and pressed my face into her wild, messy hair, and I breathed her in. Pancakes and sleep and the strawberry shampoo she'd had since she was a baby. And for the first time in 9 months, the cold that had lived in my chest since Alaska finally cracked. Hi, Lilybug, I managed. She pulled back just far enough to put both her small hands on my cheeks, squishing my face, checking I was real. You're solid, she announced, amazed. I'm solid. The banner's not done. There's only one L in welcome. I got tired. I heard. I love it. I think it's better that way. She looked at me very seriously, the way she said everything. We come home means all of us. Then her eyes flicked to her mother, then back to me, and she lowered her voice, like she was sharing a secret. I made it say all of us on purpose. Behind her, Nora let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. And I understood, in that second, that my 7-year-old daughter had been quietly fighting for this family the entire time I'd been gone. While 2 grown adults wrote letters they never sent, and slept in each other's shirts, and told themselves stories about being over it, a little girl in dinosaur pajamas had simply refused to believe it was over. Mr. Daniel is nice, Lily said, climbing into my lap and getting comfortable, settling in like she'd been waiting 9 months for a lap to sit in. But he doesn't know that you only like the orange juice without the bits in it. And he doesn't know the floor song. She pointed at the hallway. That floor. It goes, You taught me it was the house saying hi. I looked over her head at Nora. Nora was crying again, but she was smiling through it now. And she mouthed 2 words at me across the room. She remembers. Here's the thing about a moment like that. The easy version of this story, the one you'd see in a movie, is that I lean across the couch and I kiss Nora right there. And the music swells, and the credits roll. And I'm not going to lie to you. Every cell in my body wanted to. But I didn't. Because a kiss in that moment would have been a beautiful lie. We broke something real, the 2 of us. We broke it slowly, over years, by going silent when we should have reached for each other. And you don't fix that with one dramatic morning, and a stuffed narwhal on the floor. You fix it by doing the hard, boring, uncinematic work of actually showing up. Every day, on purpose, even when it's not a surprise, even when nobody made a banner. So instead of kissing her, I set Lily gently on the couch beside her mother, and I picked up my phone, and I handed it to Nora. "Call him," I said. She stared at me. "What?" "Call Daniel. Today. Not because of me. Because you already know." I held her eyes. "You knew before I walked through that door. You couldn't finish the goodbye letter, Nora. You fell asleep in my shirt. You don't say yes to one man while you're still writing to another. He's a good man. He deserves your whole heart. And your whole heart's been sitting in that journal for 3 years." She looked at the phone. She looked at Lily. She looked at me. And she made the call. I took Lily to the kitchen so she wouldn't hear. And I made her orange juice. The kind without the bits. And we worked on the second L of the banner together, while, in the other room, her mother gently, kindly, tearfully, ended things with a good man who deserved the truth. I only caught pieces. You were never the question, Daniel. The question was always whether I'd let myself go back to the door I never really walked away from. When she hung up, I heard her cry a little. Ending things with someone good hurts, even when it's right, especially when it's right. Then she came into the kitchen, eyes red, and she looked at me, and she said the bravest thing of the whole morning. "I'm not falling back into you because the timing was dramatic, Adam. We don't get to skip the work. I'm not letting Lily watch us try and fail. So if we do this, we do it slow. We do the parts we ran past the first time." "Slow," I said. "I want slow. I want to do every part we skipped. You're going to keep going to therapy. I already called Greg from the airport. He says hi. He's very invested." A laugh burst out of her, surprised and bright, and she pressed her hand over her mouth like she had that morning. Except this time, it wasn't to hold grief in. It was to hold joy in. Like she wasn't sure she was allowed to feel it yet. So we went slow. I rented an apartment 15 minutes away, instead of 2,000 miles. And we dated. Really dated. Like two people who happened to already know everything about each other. I took her to dinner, and she wore a green dress, and I forgot every word I'd practiced the second she opened her door. We did the thing we never could before. We went into the green room together. Both of us. At the same time. We sat on the floor of the nursery we'd kept closed for years, and we said our son's name out loud. Sam. And we cried for him together, finally, the way we should have from the very first day. And it turned out the room never needed a different color. It just needed 2 people in it instead of 1. Lily was insufferable about all of it. She'd known, she informed us. Repeatedly. The unfinished banner stayed taped to that wall for a month, and we never did fix the spelling, because by then, "We Come Home" felt truer than the correct version ever could. The narwhal still lives on her bed. She named him Greg after the therapist, which Greg found deeply moving. We remarried the following spring. Small. In the backyard. Right next to the gutter Daniel fixed, which I have never once had the nerve to complain about. Nora wore green again. Lily was the flower girl and took the job so seriously she audited the petals and demanded a recount. And when the officiant got to the part, for better or for worse, Nora caught my eye, and we both nearly came apart, because we already knew exactly how bad the worst could get. We'd lived it. We'd buried a child inside it. We'd lost each other inside it. And we'd found our way back to the door anyway. About a week after I came home, I found my old gray flannel, folded on the foot of my bed, with a note pinned to it, in Nora's handwriting. It said, "I kept this for 3 years, because it still smelled like the man I married. You can have it back now. You finally smell like him again." I never gave it back. Some mornings she still steals it. I let her. After everything 2 people can lose. A child, a marriage, 3 silent years writing letters across a wall, a borrowed shirt is the smallest, easiest thing in the world to share. And every morning now, I get to walk down that hallway, and the floor still groans in the exact same spot, and Lily still calls it the house saying hello. It took me 3 years and 2,000 miles to understand what that old board was really trying to tell me, every single time. Welcome home. If you came home early and found the person you thought you'd lost forever waiting for you, not with anger, but with the truth you'd both been hiding, what would you have done? Have you ever found your way back to someone you were sure was gone for good? Tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one.